But we can start with the news of the day and kind of the news of the past couple weeks in terms of coaching carousel world, which was where's Lane Kiffin going to go, and everything else was kind of getting held up by that. Some smaller programs had made their hires, but Florida was waiting around. Auburn couldn't really hire somebody because, the people they potentially wanted to hire were waiting to see what would happen with the LSU job. LSU obviously was waiting around, so everyone was just kind of in a log jam. And as the weekend progressed, it became increasingly clear that Lane Kiffin wanted to go to LSU, was going to go to LSU, and it finally basically broke last night. He was leaving for LSU, but he basically was trying to demand that he would Ole Miss, like basically make an ultimatum to the Ole Miss AD that he would be allowed to coach Ole Miss still, and if not, he was going to take all their coaches and all their players and leave. Ole Miss held firm, basically told him to kick rocks, and that's what he did. He left for Baton Rouge a couple hours ago on a plane. We got good footage of that. All the Ole Miss fans outside the fence flipping him off. Took a couple offensive staffers with him, as well as strength and conditioning coach and the GM, I believe. Most of the defensive personnel stayed put, headlined by Pete Golding, who now is the new head coach, not even the interim head coach. He just straight up is the new head coach. Ole Miss worked really fast on that, which I'm not surprised given their situation.
I imagine that they had that lined up for a while. I'm sure that they were having conversations with him. I don't know if I would use the word interviewing, but
they definitely were interviewing because we had heard rumors they already were discussing other candidates. As well.
So I don't know if they knew that Kiffin was going to leave. I don't know if Kiffin knew, but I'm sure that they were preparing for the event that he did leave. So that makes a lot of sense that they were able to fire that one off pretty quick. And I'm sure that it was not a scramble. I think that's a pretty confident they do genuinely feel that that's their guy, because even as an Ole Miss hater, I do think that job is good enough that if that wasn't their guy, they could have brought in someone else from outside the building, a decent candidate at least. So I think that they probably got a good feeling that's their guy.
Yeah, they still had to get it done quick, though, because in terms of Kiffin trying to steal the rest of the staffers, it came out in a report that they basically were offering double salary to any staffer that was going to stay.
Yeah.
But even still, if they didn't have a head coach in place, why would a staffer necessarily stay? Because they have no job security, right? Because if you don't know who the head coach is going to be, well, you could hire a new head coach, and then he just brings in his own guy, and you lose your spot. And then since Kiffin was like, if you don't come with me now, you're not coming at all. So then you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But since they went ahead and hired Pete Golding today, staffers could at least have some reassurance, like, hey, if I stay at Ole Miss, I'd imagine conversations would have like, you can stay and you can keep your job under Pete Golding. So that was huge for Ole Miss to kind of make all that happen in kind of a 24-hour-ish window. I do agree that they probably were being proactive and having discussions before that, but even still, to get it all done in a timely manner,
yeah, and so now
is well done.
Ole Miss will wait, I guess, to see if they're in the playoffs. That's kind of a huge topic of discussion. A lot of people compare this to 2023 Florida State. 2023 Florida State goes undefeated, but their starting quarterback, Jordan Travis, gets hurt, breaks his ankle, misses it was in the last game of the season.
Missed the Florida game.
So the second to last, misses the Florida game, and then misses the ACC championship. Florida State goes on to win both games. ACC championship in a close fashion. It wasn't a dominant win by any means, I don't think. And then they get eliminated. They don't make the playoffs. They finish as the number 5 team in the country, and as an undefeated team, they miss the playoffs in favor of 2 one-loss teams. Now people are talking about this Ole Miss team, talking about if Kiffin leaves and he takes the offensive staff with him, is that not more damning than losing your starting quarterback? Should this Ole Miss team be out in favor of Miami, Notre Dame, BYU? I'm not going to say Texas, but some of those other teams that are Vanderbilt.
Texas, Utah. You're completely allowed to say those teams.
I wasn't going to say Texas. I don't think Texas.
None of them have a head-to-head.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
But those teams, do they have a better at-large case right now than Ole Miss, who we don't know what the team is going to look like in a week? The portal for the team, does it wait 4 days? Is that right, or is it immediately? I feel like there's a...
I thought it immediately opened.
Is it immediate?
4 days would be news to me. I could be wrong.
No, I don't know why I had that in my brain. If you think it's immediate, it's probably immediate.
I thought as soon as you just get 30
so
days.
I wonder, now Ole Miss waits. to see what their playoff fate will be if they still get in. And I wonder if that's part of maintaining that in-house hiring is like that continuity, presenting that to the committee. I wonder if you hope that gives you a better chance of getting in.
I think that is part of it. I doubt that's why they made the decision, but it certainly helps. I am interested to see what the committee does, though, because it's a good point of, like, how far do they drop them? There's even a word where they do drop them and they do factor it in, but then they just fall to, like, maybe, say, 10.
Yeah.
And so then they're still in.
Yeah.
They're just further down the pecking order, per se.
And we can get more into that when we do
Correct.
our top 12, our college football playoff. On the LSU side, I think this is a great hire. Kiffin has been winning at Ole Miss, and I think that while Ole Miss fans might think that Ole Miss has turned into a fantastic job and they've got all the resources, LSU is just one of the best, if not the best, jobs in the country when it comes to college football.
Yeah, it's still a step above.
The only downside to it right now is some of the admin stuff that's been in place with the governor getting involved. If they sort of that out, or if you think that if Kiffin thinks it doesn't matter and that he can just not ignore that and coach around it, then it's one of the best, if not the best jobs. The thing I'll be interested to see is LSU, and y'all can disagree with me if you want. LSU is not a Lane. I don't know how Lane Kiffin's going to fit in there. The way he's built his brand at Ole Miss and the way he built up that Ole Miss football program was through the transfer portal, consistently bringing in guys, talented guys, yes, but in the transfer portal. And I feel like that's not LSU's vibe. LSU has, and maybe it's just the changing nature of college football, but LSU, especially with the recruiting grounds they're in Louisiana and the talent you can find there, and East Texas, feels like, I just wonder how Kiffin is going, if he's going to change his ways and just build teams out of 4- and 5-star high schoolers like LSU is prone to do, or if he's going to try and bring his traditional methods that he's been using at Ole Miss to LSU. I wonder, that's going to be a weird dynamic to witness because LSU is such a huge brand in recruiting. I think they had one decommit after Brian Kelly was fired. Guys out of high school commit to LSU because it's LSU. They don't commit to Brian Kelly. They don't commit to Les Miles. They don't commit to Ed Orgeron. They commit to LSU. And so I'll be interested to see how Kiffin builds that program going forward, if he tries to change the way LSU is built or if he changes some of his recruiting methods.
I think he'll mix it. I think he'll still rely on the portal because basically every good program currently does. And then he'll take advantage of being at a better recruiting school than Ole Miss and be able to get in very talented high schoolers. LSU has a top 5 player in the country committed right now.
The
in
wide
Lamar
receiver,
Brown.
yeah.
He's a
Offense.
lineman.
Yeah.
But and he's still on board. So he didn't decommit. Seems like he's still happy Lane's there. So I think he'll mix. He'll be able to recruit better from the high school level pretty easily. That's just kind of a given at LSU. Coaches don't recruit bad at LSU because it's LSU. And then they'll still be able to get guys from the portal just fine. And then talking about kind of the whole setup there and, the admin, what is the governor going to do? How does he fit there? He wins a lot. It's kind of undeniable. What he did at Ole Miss is very impressive. And if you win at LSU, I don't think they're going to care. That's what they care about more than anything at this point, to be honest. They just want someone in there that's going to win games. So...
No, they don't just want someone who's going to win games.
Big games.
Win big games. Is
not the game. They don't play in the game.
They don't play in the game.
Brian
that
Kelly
is true.
won 34 games there, so over the course of 3.5 seasons.
Yeah.
So they don't just care about winning games. They care about
they care about making the playoffs at this point.
Definitely care about
They want a
making
coach
the
that's going to
playoffs.
get them back into the playoffs. I feel pretty confident Lane's going to put him in a good spot to do that.
Yeah. And then I do think... were you about to say something, JP?
I was just going to give my speech, but you can go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to address a couple things in the chat, but you give your speech, and then we can see if there's more in the chat.
Ditto to what Jack said. The recruiting base, way better. They're just going to recruit better high school talent, then be able to add pieces that fit well through the portal, whether that means we don't have a quarterback this year, we can go get a quarterback for Lane. Oh, we don't have receiver talent. We can go get receiver talent. Oh, we need defensive back help. We can go get that. So on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to get that consistently at Ole Miss. They've done a great job at finding stuff in the portal. They haven't really missed for a year on the portal. But point blank, just go pull up their reference page. Ole Miss, LSU. Strikingly different. Since 2000, Ole Miss has had 9 losing seasons. LSU's had 1. They were 6-7, which was the year that they fired Ed Orgeron at the end. And that was after their COVID year, and that was really when they were at their lowest. Other than that, they've had years that were extremely successful, multiple 10-win seasons. I think roughly 15 or so. Compare that to Ole Miss, they've had 4 under Lane Kiffin and then 6 total across the 25 years. So strikingly different. That they're about to return to the mean, and I don't just say that as a State fan. That is the truth. Point blank, Lane overachieved there, and I will give him a ton of credit for what he built there and the amount of help that he was able to get from the boosters there. But nothing that he did is going to change their history, I don't think. And I don't think that means they're going to just consistently become a winner. They may win 7 games a year now as opposed to when they won 5 or 6 games. They may win 8 games a year, but they're not going to be perennial playoff contenders. And Pete Golding is more than welcome to prove me wrong, but I think we've seen a defensive coordinator been hired up really quickly after a head coach is gone, and we've seen how that worked. Not saying that he's going to be that guy, he who shall not be named, but it's completely on the board.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him for leaving, and I don't blame him for how everything is gone. I completely understand the outrage, and some of the ways he handled the situation was really piss poor. Having your dog tweet about the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
I think we're in the first quarter of the Iron Bowl when that happens. And then, of course, they're not in the SEC championship game. And meanwhile, while all that's happening, you're meeting with your athletic director. But it's a calendar issue. In the video game, you get to coach the rest of the season because that's the way it should work. I didn't want to leave my Central Michigan Chippewas when we had made the playoff and go to South Carolina early. No, I wanted to coach the rest of my season with Malachi Nelson and try to win a playoff game. I didn't win a playoff game, but I was able to finish my season, and that's the way it should be. But it's a calendar issue.
It's untenable to do that right now at a high-profile school.
It's impossible. Even for LSU, where they don't have the decommitments, it physically doesn't make sense for, on the other hand, Ole Miss, because they are going to have tons of decommitments. They already have tons of flips that are going to flip to LSU, lack of success in the portal game, and that's just going to be the way it is because they wouldn't have a head coach with Lane leaving. So I don't blame him for the way he did it. I don't know if he changes the tide at LSU. He might go and win a national championship. It's completely possible. And they have had that kind of success before. Yeah. But he's going to have to. The biggest thing is he's just going to have to go and win the big games and change that. But it's still just as possible that in 5 years we're firing Lane Kiffin for the same reason we fired Brian Kelly. I think that's completely on the board. Lane struggled even at Ole Miss, and now you would hope with the talent it'll change. Yeah. Winning big games against big-time opponents. Very, very few of them were there. The Georgia win last year, and I'd argue the Oklahoma win this year, and that's really about it. But I don't blame him for anything of what has occurred. I'm not going to like the guy now that he's at LSU and not at Ole Miss, but good luck to him.
No, I completely agree. If you want to be outraged about how he handled it, that's somewhat fine because I do agree he made poor decisions in terms of at some point he just needed to bite the bullet and just make the move and realize that his fantasy of doing both wasn't possible. And then when he realized that, he got a little pissy about it. But he had to make this move now or he wasn't going to be able to make it. And that's not his fault. So getting upset about him for that is simply stupid. And then also, for the Ole Miss fans, I get you're upset and he left, and so you're never going to be happy about a coach leaving. And some of the theatrics of the past couple of days have been upsetting to Ole Miss fans and even just people in the national media and even just like general fans of the sport. But at the same time, this is what we've done for the past couple. This is what we've praised. Lane for the past couple years at Ole Miss are the antics and the personality he brings. So I don't know why we're all of a sudden surprised or expecting someone to act differently than he has over the past years. Like, I don't know what you expected in this situation to turn out differently than the trolling and all of that. I get now you're on the other side if you're an Ole Miss fan, and that sucks. But, like, I don't know, man. It doesn't surprise me at all that his dog posts the picture of the field and is like, oh, this could look cool at the SEC championship game. That's just lame. You can hate it, but it's just who he is, and he sticks to that. So
Yeah.
We also were at a completely different time in the calendar. People were talking in the chat about Arnett and Leach. It was December 12th.
Yeah.
My dad's birthday, the day Leach died, and we didn't even know if he was going to be okay for about 24 to 40 hours with that whole situation. And so it was a completely different time. Portal window had already opened. National Signing Day had already commenced. They had much more time, and it's at a better time in the calendar. Still, though, very well you could see the same result.
yeah,
And I wish it on them.
Even if you're saying, I think it starts because Jackson or Chromie in the chat calls it a panic move, keeping Golding. He says it feels like a panic move. And then it's like, if you want to compare it to the Arnett thing, keeping Arnett kind of was the panic move as well because there was no other option.
He wasn't fully hired on until he won the bowl game, though.
True.
And that was the thing.
I
and that's
also
really what
does
got him the
not
job.
having another option, like, is that synonymous with it being a panic move? Because
y'all were scrambling. And then even if you say you wait to hire him, you can say you weighed other options and you decide he was the best option. I just think both schools were stuck in a tough spot in terms of hiring a guy. And even if the Golding hire works out, it kind of feels like it's just a big risk.
Yeah.
The Arnett hire was a massive risk, and it didn't work out at all.
Yeah.
My father-in-law texted me, and he was like, man, I wonder if this is going to end, if this is going to end up the same as Arnett or as bad as the Arnett thing did. I was like, well, at least for Ole Miss, it's pretty hard for it to end up as bad as the Arnett thing did. Like, that's about as bad as it can go.
Yeah.
But the irony is definitely there, and that's pretty funny for that because Ole Miss has ragged on State for having to do that for years, and they basically just did the exact same thing. Once again, it could definitely work. Their money, they got their money up. Unlike State at the time, they definitely have the NIL thing a little more figured out.
Yeah.
So they're in a better situation from that. And maybe Golding's just ends up being a much better coach, but we just don't know. And so I'm not going to sit here and praise the hire like a ton of people have and a ton of Ole Miss people have, because I don't think it's a bad hire because you didn't have tons of options. But I'm not going to be like, man, this is a home run hire. He was the true leader of the program. He was the true reason that this whole thing
behind
worked.
the scenes.
That just seems like revisionist history to me in a crazy way. To all of a sudden be like, Lane wasn't the reason that this Ole Miss program was humming, that it was Golding, and that people committed to Ole Miss because of Golding. I'm sure some did. Definitely not all, though.
Yeah,
so
they've
I'm
already
just not
had
there
several
for that.
guys decommit. I'll just address, so he X65, X70 says, I think Kiffin handled that about as bad as he could. Y'all have kind of already weighed in on that. I'll just say that, everyone was in a tough spot. Kiffin wanted to take the promotion to the next level. LSU is a level above Ole Miss. But he also wanted to finish out his time at Ole Miss and try and win a championship there. And he unfortunately tried to leverage what he thought he had over Ole Miss, which is his coaching staff, to stay. And it did not work. And that's going to leave everyone pretty mad because you basically tried to blackmail someone and they said they wouldn't be blackmailed. And it's unfortunate that that's how it played out. So yeah, it is. He did handle it poorly, I guess, in a manner. But I don't have a problem with him wanting to stay at Ole Miss and trying to figure out how to, but maybe he went too far is what I'll say, and that
I
he
think
did
that's
handle
fair.
that poorly. But I do have a lot of respect for a guy who wants to finish what he started, but also knowing that, like, LSU is just a better job than Ole Miss. Like, I'm going to take the promotion, but I do want to try and finish it out. Unfortunately, they could not figure out a way to do that.
Yeah.
And I really would have been interested to see what LSU was thinking through all of those negotiations, because I don't know, going back to their high school recruiting class, maybe they were just so confident in their recruiting class in high school that none of them were decommitting, that they were okay with him not being in Baton Rouge for early signing day. I don't know. But, yeah. And then I think y'all have already walked through most of what the chat's talked about. So any other talk? 65 by 70 did point out that Mullen did leave right before the tax labor bill in 2017. Is that right, JP?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we went out and made a great hire in Joe Moorhead, and that lasted about 3 years.
Yeah, that went really, really
Yeah,
well.
really well.
Also a bit of a different time, too. I mean, obviously the hire
Very,
didn't go
very
well,
different
but
time.
the schedule wasn't as scuffed.
Yeah,
And all the transfer
the
portal
portal,
wasn't as
yeah.
as big of a thing,
Very different era of
so-
college football.
which is crazy because that was just 2017. But
Yeah.
it feels,
It was 8 years ago. That was a long time.
yeah, by college football timeline, with everything that's changed, like that is a lifetime ago, which is crazy. But yeah,
Y'all are on your second or third head coach since then? We're on our, because y'all had
that same-
Sumlin, right?
that was
You're
so
in
in
third.
2017, third. We hired Jimbo that same cycle,
Yeah. So this is your,
so second.
second since then.
Yeah, correct.
And we're on our third since then.
Fourth because of Arnett, right?
Oh, yeah. Moorhead, Leach, Arnett, Levy.
Yeah, Arnett barely counts.
Yep.
He didn't really do the things the head coach does.
Mm-mm.
So he had the title, but he didn't necessarily fulfill the role very well at all. Anything else on this? I
Yeah.
mean, go ahead.
Expectations.
Yeah, I think that's
Again,
very fair.
You don't accept the bigger job and then expect to be able to have the same kind of success that you had at Old Piss and then get away with it. And while they were extremely successful, that's still not enough. Brian Kelly was the first LSU head coach since prior to Saban that hadn't won a national championship. Now, there had only been 3, in Ed Orgeron, Les Miles, and Nick Saban, but he was the first to not, and that's in large part because him not making the playoff was why he was ended up being fired. Kiffin's going to have to make the playoff, I think, immediately, maybe next year. Now, he won't get fired after next year, but I do think he immediately is put into a tough spot because that's how that fan base reacts, and that's how that fan base is. And speaking of next year, he's going to have plenty of opportunities. In fact, I think enough to maybe be in the playoff at 9-3. They host Clemson to start the year. They host Bama. They host State. State's going to be excellent next year, a ranked opponent at that point. Go ahead and mark it.
Okay.
But they do host Texas and Texas A&M in Death Valley. Once again, he, of course, returns to his, as fate would have it, he returns to his 2 SEC places that he's coached at in Old Piss and Tennessee, and those will be high marquee games. But I think immediately, obviously, the expectation will be to have tremendous success, to make the playoff, and I guess I would swing that to y'all as, do you guys think he will do it in year 1?
Do I think he'll make the playoffs in year 1?
Let me pull up their schedule.
Like I said, at Ole Piss, at
Yeah, just walk
Tennessee, at Auburn, at Arkansas, at Kentucky. So 5 manageable road games, 2 really, really high environment, a lot of pressure on those 2 games in Ole Piss and Tennessee.
Yeah.
The at Auburn one will be tough depending on what time the game is. If it's night, I think it's tough. And then Kentucky, who's fraudulent in the dumps, basketball school. And then Arkansas, who just made the worst hire potentially in college football history, according to them. And then at home, they will host Camario Taylor. They will host Bama, Texas, Texas A&M, and then Dabo Sweeney and Clemson.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I would say 9 of those games that next year are on ABC. Go ahead and mark it for that. Do you think he can get to... We don't know what the roster is going to look like. We don't know what the other teams' rosters are going to look like for the most part. but do you expect early success going forward for Lane Kiffin at this moment?
I do. It may be hard pressed to make the playoffs next year, but I think it's possible just because, sure, Brian Kelly and LSU's been down these past couple years. But we just talked about how it's LSU. So just because they've been down hasn't meant that there's like no talent on the roster, that everyone's fled, that all the recruits have fled. And then what I expect him to do in the portal, I think get done. The biggest question for me is what does he end up doing at the quarterback position? Like who does he?
I think Trinidad might have another year. I saw some people talking about that.
Yeah, he put in a waiver, which is unofficial, but he'll probably get it because everyone gets it.
An appeal.
Yeah, an appeal.
Yeah.
But what if he doesn't want to go?
Yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't want to go to the follow the coach.
Yeah.
It makes every quarterback look like an NFL quarterback, or not NFL, but like a Heisman contender. And then I'll go ahead and give my answer to does he make the playoffs next year and say no. I'm going to say he goes 9-3 next year. I'm going to say he loses to. I was going to say he loses to Alabama, Texas, and Texas A&M, but those are the 3 home games, and that's
He would be in hot water if he lost three games at Death Valley.
Yeah. But so I'm going to say they beat Clemson, they beat McNeese, they beat Arkansas, they beat Auburn, they beat Kentucky. That's 5. They beat Mississippi State is 6. They beat Tennessee and Ole Miss. That is a number, and then 8. I don't know if that was close together. So that's 8 wins. And then they still have Alabama, Texas A&M. I skipped one. I'll say he can make it. I'll say 10-2, and they'll make it. Because I think they'll win I feel good about them winning all the games except Alabama, Texas, and Texas A&M. And then I think that they'll win one of those 3 games and get in the playoffs at 10-2.
I mean, I also just agree with JP that this team could get in as a 9-3 team.
Yeah.
It's possible. Obviously, it depends on how everything else shakes out.
Yeah, I think that, but it's really hard. I don't know what my expectations for the rest of these teams. I don't know that any of them are going to be good enough that if you lose to Alabama, Texas, and Texas A&M, that you've got the wins to boost that. You've got quote, great losses, but I don't really know if you would have the wins you needed to overcome having 3 losses.
Time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to say, as far as expectations, like long-term, beyond year 1, the reality is the LSU, a 9-win season, and you don't make the playoffs, you're on the hot seat for next year.
I don't think so.
Not for next year, but it would have to be multiple years.
That's what I said. Like year 2 and I see what you're saying. Like
So
if you go 9 wins multiple years in a row.
If you miss the playoff multiple years in a row,
If after his first 2 years he's not made the playoffs, questions will start to be getting asked.
Oh yeah, for sure. I want to move on to another head coaching.
Well,
you
just
got
last to wrap it up. Just grade the
Put a bow
hire
on
for
it.
LSU and grade the hire for Ole Miss.
for LSU,
Start with LSU. We'll all grade LSU first.
A+, best candidate on the market.
Yeah.
You get to reap all of the benefits from this, all the recruiting, transfer portal, the money that's going to come in from boosters, on top of another school in the SEC. In fact, one that you play next year is going to fall because of that, and none for how much backlash and stuff in the media Brian Kelly had been for his 3-year, 4-year tenure. That is almost going to be completely wiped off the face of the planet now that Kiffin is there, and you hold none of the blame anymore. And so you get to rewrite everything. You get to have your own new recruiting videos. You know, Kiffin can do
and
dance,
twerk on his recruits.
and twerk on his recruit.
Lamar Brown or whatever his
And
name
it's
was.
cool. Kiffin can do hot yoga with his recruit.
And it's cool.
And it's cool.
Yeah.
Kiffin can say, "Go Tigers" in a Southern accent, and it's cool now because he's hot and he isn't an old fart like Brian Kelly. So I would say it's an A+.
Yeah, I'll give it an A in a vacuum. Obviously, like the rest of the staff and how he handles all of the hirings matter to give it a true grade. I can't give it an A+ just because they're the best job available and they got the best coach. So, like,
They did the expected.
you did the expected, correct?
How would they get?
They
an
can't
A+?
get an A+.
Okay.
I mean, I guess if they got Nick Saban out of returement, I guess I would have given them an A+.
wouldn't.
That's
I
I think
like
that's
that
I think
as
that's a
much.
fair take. if you get I think the only you get an A plus is if you go take a
If you make
guy
100.
that you didn't really think was going to be available.
It's like getting the bonus points. It's
Yeah.
just my philosophy. You can agree, disagree, but like for example, I would never give the first team in a draft an A+ grade for taking the best, like my best player on the board. You did the expected thing.
So what was your grade for drafting the Oregon running back?
Oh, that was an F.
What's his name? I always forget.
Mekhi Hughes.
Mekhi Hughes.
Draft night. That's an A- pick.
All right. Did not pan out.
But did not pan out.
I'll go ahead and give my grade. I would also give it an A+. I think it's going to be weird to see the culture of Lane Kiffin and LSU kind of meet each other in the middle. But I do think that it's going to work out because Lane Kiffin has been winning at Ole Miss, and I think he's a winning guy. You draft winners, hire winners, do all that. But I do think I'm going to give that an A+, and then I'll go ahead and start the Ole Miss, and we go back. I'm going to give Ole Miss like a B-, a C+ to B-. I think that it makes sense in a lot of ways. Maintaining that coaching staff, trying to maintain some consistency is a good argument. Hopefully you can make an argument to the committee that if you carry over some of the guys from the coaching staff, that you can stay in the playoff rankings. I think there's an argument to be made there. An argument to keep players on the roster because it is a talented roster right now. An argument to keep high school recruits committed because they have a good recruiting class. I think that consistency makes sense. So because of that, I think I'm going to give it a B-, because I do think that it's a smart decision given the context of in the playoff race and everything else going on to try and keep that in-house. Now, if it doesn't work out, it's tough and they miss. But I think right now I'd give that a B- because it gives them a chance to try and stay in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll give them retaining Pete Golding a B+, largely for what you said of like, and what JP talked about earlier. This is historical grounds for Ole Miss. This chance to make a playoff run doesn't come around very often. So I think it's in their best interest to try and really maximize this playoff run and then go from there. And I think making Pete Golding the head coach now is just the most seamless and the kind of way to, what's the phrase? Keep all your ducks in a row as quick as possible. And then keep moving forward quickly to the goal of what happens in the playoffs, assuming they make it, assuming they don't get dropped out. But once again, this is their best chance to not get dropped out as well, is to keep Pete Golding. So since I think they don't make the playoffs very often and they really need to maximize this chance, and I have no idea what he's going to be as a head coach down the line, but I think they made the smart move for trying to make a playoff run this year. I'll give it a B+, even though I don't love him as a head coach down the line.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. You would never advertise it as this, but if it's just a 1-year decision, you do that, try and make your playoff run, you give him next year, and if it doesn't work, you move on, and you go get next year's Alex Golish or John Summerall from the G5 level, because Ole Miss has shown that they've got money to invest in football, that they're willing to invest in football. So I think it makes a lot of sense that you give him this chance to coach in the playoffs or try and coach in the playoffs. You give him next year, and then if it doesn't work, you go take that money and you put it into one of the up-and-comers out of the G5 levels.
Sure.
Maybe the guy at Southern Miss who I love from Marshall.
Huff.
Thank you, Jonathan Huff.
I really want to say Jay Huff, but that is
Charles Huff. I know a Jonathan Huff. That's what it is. Charles Huff. Thank you.
Jay Huff is Indiana Pacers center and
he's kind of
UVA legend as well. But he is he's a baller.
Ditto and ditto just for the playoff this year, going forward C-.
Really?
Sure.
Yes.
Hired a complete unknown. It's hard to love that.
It's a risk, full-on risk. He has a lot to potentially gain for next year by winning a potential playoff game. But I still think it's a hugely developing story, and I'll go ahead and say I don't think the entire roster is going to be there for the playoff game. I think they'll miss a few impactful pieces to that team somehow in the portal.
Yeah, why though? Why?
Kiffin, in his backstabbing ways, says, Kwan Lacey, if you don't transfer right now, I'm not giving you a scholarship to LSU.
Yeah,
which
that's as I asked. I realized that that's a possibility.
he kind of, in some ways, it's kind of scummy, but he also kind of has to do it because, like, if there's other good running backs available, he can't just be like, yeah, I'm going to wait around for you and miss out on these other guys.
Yeah, crazy.
Trinidad, if you don't say you're going to transfer, assuming you get your waiver, I'm starting Michael Van Buren, Mr. President, next year. I think there's only stuff to. I don't think he'll lose much unless they get blasted and it's at home in the playoff game. But if they win playoff games, it can only help next year. But going forward, I don't think it has any impact because next year is next year. Next year they could be 7-5,
Yeah.
very, very easily. And then it's all back right down to where we started, and all the preppy kids that go there and their graduates suddenly get real quiet again. And I can't wait for that personally.
They'll stop going into the stadium even for the big games.